Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion. Only smart takes, never any clickbait. And today we're going to jump right in discussing the 49ers schedule release. We'll make predictions for the entire season, which I know is ridiculous since we have no idea what's going to happen with injuries. And also a way too early prediction for the 53-man roster as of May 17th, this recording. So the schedule was released, 3 days ago now on Thursday. Just didn't have time to do a podcast. I apologize. And we knew about the Australia game from a couple months ago. Then isn't it, we can call it convenient, but also to me a little bit aggravating how Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday leading up to the 8 p.m. schedule reveal by the NFL, how many more games wound up getting quote unquote leaked. Like I can understand, say you leak the Thursday night. Well, they leaked all the international games earlier on in the week. Or if you want to do the Thursday night games, the Sunday night games, the Monday night games in some spaced out capacity, right? Like one a week. But then as you get to the week of the schedule, everything's given away basically for every team, especially late Wednesday, early Thursday, which in this attention deficit society that we live in, everything's immediate, and video clips have to be a minute long or else no one's going to watch them. It feels a bit excessive. Then again, and when it comes to, streaming shows, I look forward to having something to watch on a certain day of the week versus a bulk drop. That's just me. But we've been able to digest the schedule now for a few days and couple of the things that we know before we get into my predictions. So we know that courtesy of the Australia game and essentially the rest of their schedule, the Niners are traveling by far the most mileage in the NFL and the most mileage in NFL history at 38,105. Right behind them are the LA Rams, again, because this Australia game, 34,847. And if you're wondering about the only other consequential team in the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks, 22,056 miles, 16,000 mile difference, essentially more than 50% more miles the Niners are traveling than the Seahawks. And at the bottom end of the spectrum, you have a team like the Carolina Panthers with 8,740 miles. It's the unfortunate luck of the draw, that Niner game being on Thursday night Eastern, 8:15, with the season kicking off between the Seahawks and the Patriots the day before on Wednesday. And apparently there is a rule. I'm going to get this wrong, but you guys can look it up in terms of the actual wordage. But there was some sort of rule put into effect 50, 60 plus years ago, 40, 50 years ago, that the NFL cannot have a Friday game prior to a certain date in in September. Which I thought was odd. Instead of going, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe you go Thursday, Friday instead. But having the Niners Rams on Thursday helps both teams out with travel going to week 2. But the Niners are going to be road warriors in more ways than one in a year in which they are supposed to have 9 home games, but one being the Mexico game, which is going to be against Minnesota. So mileage, not in the Niners' favor. Rest differential, meaning when you compare a team to the every other team that they're playing, but one team at a time, in terms of who has a Thursday game, Sunday, Monday, Australia, whatever it may be, the number of net days, either half days or full days, that one team may have kind of overall in their schedule. The Niners are the only team that are at a 0. When you compare the Niners to their own schedule in its entirety, all 17 games, their rest differential is 0 or the same as the sum of all the teams they're playing. The Seahawks are at a +8-day rest differential, again, just against their schedule. And the Rams are at -6, a -6 rest differential against the teams they are specifically playing on their schedule. So the Niners, it's not a positive, it's not a negative, it's a net neutral compared to the Seahawks being a positive and the Rams being a negative. We'll see how that nets out. And lastly, strength of schedule, not all that drastically different for the top 3 teams in the NFC West. The Rams with the most difficult schedule at a .516 win percentage of their opponents. The Seahawks, the Rams are 13th in the league. The Seahawks have the 14th most difficult schedule at a .514 win percentage. And the Niners are at 18th with a .497 win percentage. Anybody out there, and if people are out there saying like, oh, the schedule's, it's not tougher than last season, or well, the Niners are a better team, and even if it's a tougher schedule, it should be. This is a much tougher schedule than what the Niners had last year. Last year, the Niners were a bottom 4 team in the league, 29, 30, 31, 32, I forget. Now they're 18th. And the fact that last year the Niners were playing the NFC South and AFC South, that is a significant drop down compared to this year. It's the NFC East and the AFC West. So let's jump right into the schedule. I'm not going to say what I have the Niners finishing. We'll do it at the end. Week 1 in Australia, technically at the Rams. So, you know, what's funny about the Rams hosting this game and requesting San Francisco is if flip it around to if the game was in Santa Clara. Ram fans don't travel to Santa Clara. Do we think Rams fans are going to travel to another continent? Niner fans have a better chance to do that when you compare the two fan bases. I don't think they're playing in Sydney on the Polo Grounds. I don't think, or rugby, whatever it is, outdoor stadium. I don't think it's going to be a Niner takeover the way it was in Los Angeles at times. Plus, it's an open air stadium, I believe, compared to obviously LA playing in a dome. So the Niner contingent, I think they will have the majority of fans present. And it might not be all San Francisco fans from the continental US. I mean, there's going to be a lot of natives, a lot of Australians there, and the Niners being the more popular historic franchise, you could make an educated guess that there might be more natural Australian Niner fans than Rams fans. Regardless, getting Stafford and Puka and Adams and the revamped secondary on week 1, I think is better than later on in the season. But we don't know how healthy the Niners are going to be going into that game. Will Kittle play? Will Michael play? God knows what injuries they're going to have from training camp. I have this as a loss. I have this as the Rams winning. And as ridiculous as giving win-losses on May 17th is, it's even more ridiculous to give score predictions, so I'm not going to do that at all. The fans are going to melt down. Loss, if it wasn't in Australia, if they played in Los Angeles, they're scared of the Niner fans, blah, blah, blah. After this loss, you're going to see the week leading between week 1 and week 2, Niner fans having a sissy meltdown because it's the Rams, because it's an overseas game, all that crap. 0-1. Niners come home for 3 straight at home against Miami and Malik Willis, who does not deserve to be a starting quarterback, and that complete mess of a franchise, win 1-1. Then they're at home against Arizona, which is it? Who is that quarterback there? Is it Brissett? It's not going to be Carson Beck, I don't think. Week 3, Arizona is, has some nice skill position players now with the running back they drafted and Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, but not a ton else. Really anywhere else, that's a win. San Francisco is 2-1 after 3 weeks. Then they have Denver coming in. Denver, Bo Nix will obviously be healthy coming off of the ankle. They added Jalen Waddle. They have a very good defense. They have playmakers on offense. Bo Nix can beat you with his arm and his legs. Sean Payton, a top, 7, say, head coach in the league. And I think the Broncos defense gives the Niners enough trouble, and Denver escapes with a win. So 4 games in, Niners are 2-2, losing to the Rams, and the Broncos beating the Dolphins and the Cardinals. Week 5 at Seattle, loss. Prove to me you can play with this team. And until you can do that, I'm not picking the Niners. I don't know, and this may be another game where maybe Seattle holds the Niners without a touchdown. Who knows how everybody's going to gel? The Mike Evans, the Christian Kirks, the DeJohn Striblings of the world, McCaffrey and his backup running backs. Will Kittle be back for week 5? Possibly. If he starts out on the pup, that could be a big boost for them. Same with Michael Williams. If he starts out on the pup and misses the first 4 weeks. But if you thought the meltdown after week 1 was bad, after the Seahawk loss and the Niners at 2-3, Niner fans are going to be immature and insufferable at 2-3 after 5 games. Week 6, they come home to Washington, a win. Washington will be a better team than they were last year, assuming Jaden Daniels is healthy. I don't quite think they're in the class of San Francisco. Niners get a win. Week 7, they go to Atlanta. Whether it's Tua or Michael Penix, if Tua gets knocked out, Atlanta has a nice team. It's a Raheem Morris revenge game, if you want to call it that. But the Niners get a win at Atlanta. They go into the week 8 bye at 4-3. 5-2 would be ideal. If they could pick up a win either week 1 or against the Rams or at home against the Broncos or at Seattle, 5-2 is obviously mathematically better than 4-3. But I'm going maybe a little bit conservative or maybe a little bit logical. And that Bronco game could really go either way. But I have the Niners 4-3 at the bye. They come out of the bye hosting the Raiders. That's a win. Week 10, they go to Dallas, and the Niners have owned Dallas recently, but I'm looking at this game. Now, granted, you're coming out of a bye. You're home week 9. Then you travel to Dallas in week 10. Not necessarily cross-country flight, but a long flight. And Dallas has weapons. They've improved their team since, the last couple times they've played San Francisco. I'm leery of this game. Dallas is going to score points, just a matter of what Cowboy defense is going to show up, but I have this as a loss. As much as it hurts me to pick the Cowboys over the Niners, this is one of those coin flip games. There are going to be games that the Niners should win that they lose. And I think there's going to be more games, so to speak, and it might be just one more. But looking at the schedule, I think there's going to be a better potential for games that the Niners should win that they actually lose than Niners winning games that they should lose, if that makes sense. And Dallas, I think, is a loss. So 5-4 after week 10. They come home, although it's in, I think this is the Mexico game, Minnesota. They will beat the Vikings wherever that game is played. Week 12 in Santa Clara against Seattle. Guys, again, loss. Prove to me that you can beat the Seahawks, then I will pick you to beat the Seahawks. Or if that week 5 game is really close and the Niners have really closed the gap between themselves and Seattle, I'm not going to pick a win until I see it. Week 12, loss at home against Seattle. Week 13 at the Giants, an improved Giants team under Harbaugh, bringing in, pieces like Isaiah Likely. You have Scatterboo. You have, obviously, Jackson Dart. Hopefully, you're going to have a healthy Malik Neighbors. The Giants have some pieces. A couple draft picks that they spent on defense, top draft picks, defense and offensive line. And they're going to be a better coach team under John Harbaugh, but the Niners are going to win this game. Week 14 at home against the Rams, revenge game, a win. I think they split with the Rams. I think week 1, the Niners defense and new arrivals on offense getting, their feet under them, I think is a bit of a tall task going up against probably the best roster and possibly the best team in the NFL week 1. But week 14 could be a different story in Santa Clara, win. Week 15 at the Chargers, a win. I mean, if you thought the Niners take over at the Rams was crazy, the Chargers have less fans than the Rams do. Niner fans should travel to Levi South again and get a win. So that's a 3-game winning streak. Week 16 at the Chiefs, loss. Again, this is a team that even though they lost their 2 starting corners in McDuffie and the other corner both going to the Rams, it's a Steve Spagnuolo defense that's going to give Kyle Shanahan problems. The defense by this point, I mean, it's week 16, assuming they're healthy, should be up and running with all their pieces. Again, assuming they're healthy, not the lingering ACL injuries of Bosa and Michael, but there's going to be new injuries. We know that. And Kittle will have been back by, 2 weeks at this point, if not 3 months at this point, excuse me. But again, this is a team, until you could beat them, I'm going to pick you to lose. Week 17 at home against Philadelphia, win. Philly should be better, even though A.J. Brown is going to be gone probably to the Patriots after June 1st or another team via trade. And at Arizona, week 18, that will be a win. So I have the Niners finishing at 11-6. If some people want to call it conservative, that's okay. I try to look at things realistically. And again, there are going to be games where the Niners should win, like at home against the Broncos, that I think they lose. And maybe even a game like the Rams at home week 14. That's a coin flip type of a game, but I have them winning that. But otherwise, I think it's fair to say week 1, decent chance for a loss. Broncos, decent chance for a loss. At Seattle, really good chance for a loss. At Dallas, decent chance for a loss. At home for Seattle, good chance for a loss. At Kansas City, good chance for a loss. And they're still beating, they have teams that they're going to beat up on, like Miami, Arizona, and the Raiders. But Washington, going to be a decent team this year. Atlanta could take a step forward. The Giants, the Chargers, the Eagles, there's still teams that they're going to have to prove their mettle against. And 11-6 with a tougher schedule than last year, which is essentially a step back. If they were 12-1, 12-5 last year, and they're 11-6 this year, it's technically a step back record-wise, but they could be. The Niners very well might be a better team in 2026 with a worse record than they had in 2025. I think the absolute ceiling for this team, if health goes nearly perfectly for them, and games, the ball bounces the right way, they minimize turnovers, they get turnovers, their ceiling is 13-4. Absolute ceiling. And I think if things kind of fall out, if you want to talk about injuries or losing games that they should win, I think their floor with this schedule is 9-8. I wanted to say 10-7, but then the floor is 1 game less than the record I'm predicting, which felt a little bit awkward. So I'm going to just downgrade it to 9-8. 9-8 floor, 9-8 floor, 13-4 ceiling, right in the middle, 11-6 is, I believe, where the Niners will fall. Now let's pivot to the 53-man roster. And again, on May 17th, this is way too early, but let's go through, because I cannot predict the future in terms of, will they sign another offensive lineman? Will they sign Joey Bosa, another DN? Will they sign a safety? We don't know. Based on the players that are on the roster currently, here's who I think will make the 53. And then this isn't going to be they'll be on the roster initially, and then they're going to release them before week 1 and then pick them up because it helps with the cap, or they're a veteran, or can't play that game now. I really don't care. I mean, when they do that dance, and I'm sure it will happen between final cuts in week 1, that's great, but I'm not prognosticating that. It seems a little crazy to do so. Quarterbacks, 3, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, and Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke, I'm curling my toes that he is on the team. I think they may look at him as the potential cheap long-term backup to Brock Purdy. I think there was an article, it might have been by Matt Mayoko, how there wasn't really interest in Mac Jones this offseason, which I don't agree with. There was interest, but people weren't willing to pay the price. Like, I'm interested in a Lamborghini, but I'm not going to pay for it. So I think that that's an incorrect way of saying it. But Curtis Rourke, like, this is the big overcorrection to the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia, right? There are still more teams in the NFL that go with 2 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster than 3. But even though Rourke was a 7th-round pick, and if he was healthy, he might have been a 4th or 5th, if they view Rourke as the long-term backup to Brock, then they have him under contract through 2028 at a ridiculously cheap price, about $1 million a year. If Mac Jones does not have a market or doesn't develop a market, and he really likes the culture and being with the guys and feels like he's making $3, $4, $5 million a year and he's happy with that, he might stay beyond this year. But right now, 3 quarterbacks on the 53, I'm not thrilled with it, because I'd rather have an extra tight end, an extra corner, an extra linebacker, an extra defensive lineman, even though that player may be inactive. And I understand the number 3 quarterback rule. Obviously, it's an inactive player, doesn't count against your game day 46, 47, whatever the hell the number is. I apologize. But you can still activate him as the emergency quarterback. I get it. And whoever that extra D lineman or O lineman, linebacker would probably be inactive. There's still, to me, greater utility and advantage in protecting a player like that on your 53 than someone like Curtis Rourke, who could easily slide to the practice squad. But for now, 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs: McCaffrey, Kalen Black, Jordan James, and Patrick Taylor, which means Isaac Guerendo is a cut. Guerendo could play special team. Now, if Guerendo makes it over Patrick Taylor, I would be fine with it. Like, I know I kept saying Patrick Taylor's just a guy. Isaac Guerendo's kind of proven that, like, for such a big guy who's fast, he lacks vision. He's not a strong or powerful runner, better hands than probably we gave him credit for coming out of Louisville. But if Boyer's going to want like a decent special teams, I think that's more Patrick Taylor than Isaac Guerendo. Regardless of who they keep, let's just say it's Patrick Taylor. The interesting thing about this is they're only going to have 3 running backs active. So the loser of the Kalen Black, Jordan James competition will be inactive on game days, unless either one of those players is going to be a better special teams player than Patrick Taylor. Again, entirely possible. But there's also a world where we may not make it Jordan James at all next year on offense outside of injuries, given the need for a special teams player at the number 3 running back position like Patrick Taylor. But for now, Isaac Guerendo cut, could make his way back to the practice squad. It could be Sincere McCormick, but that would just go along with the Kylan John mid-round running back that can't last more than 2 years. Jordan James, you are up next in 2027 to possibly get released. Fullback 1, Juice. Tight ends, I'm going with 2 for the 53-man roster. This is probably not going to shake out this way, but I'm playing a numbers game here. It's going to be Jake Tonjes and Luke Farrell. In this scenario, George Kittle starts out on PUP, which means he's out for the first 4 weeks. That means to me, then 1 or 2 of Braden Willis, Hayden Rucci, and undrafted rookie free agent Khalil Dinkins from Penn State will be on. I think 2 of those will be on the practice squad. And each player, in my mind, will be elevated twice to fill in for Kittle, but fill in as tight end 3. And then when Kittle's back, you still have these tight ends, whether it's Willis, Rucci, or Dinkins, if they were each elevated twice, still have 1 more elevation before they have to be promoted to the 53. Do I think it's realistic that they have 2 tight ends on the 53-man roster for week 1? Probably not, but I'm doing some roster shuffling here. And it's roster shuffling to get through the short term, Kittle potentially being on PUP, and then some long-term stuff as well. So 2 tight ends, I'm doing this because I kind of like it. I think it's interesting how you can manipulate the practice squad. Do I think it could realistically happen? Probably not, but this is how I'm building it out as of May 17th. Wide receiver 6. It's going to be Evans, Pearsall, Kirk, Stribling, Cowing, and Watkins, which means Demarcus Robinson is going to get cut. And I checked, if he's cut after June 1st, which he will not get cut before June 1st, it's only about $300,000 savings on the salary cap. Not much. They need a punt returner. Watkins, I think, maybe in competition with Cowing and Junior Bergen, last year's 7th round pick out of Montana. I think, again, Bergen is an easy stash on the practice squad. Cowing, I think they're going to give him first looks at punt returner. He does obviously add a speed element. Demarcus Robinson was an important player this past season for the team because he was one of the veterans, right? It was he and basically Juwan Jennings as the veteran receivers in the room. Pearsall was banged up quite a bit. Ayuk was a no-show. Watkins was a rookie. Cowings was hurt. So they brought Malik Willis up, a couple games to play some special teams. But now that there are additional veterans in the room, Evans, Kirk, Pearsall going into year 3. I think having 3 veteran-ish receivers and 3 young receivers, Stribling, Cowing, and Watkins, feels like a decent balance. And again, someone's got to be the punt returner. Maybe the punt returner doesn't exist on the roster right now, but as of May 17th, it's Cowing, which means if those are your 6 receivers, it means outside of injury, Jordan Watkins is going to be a game day inactive quite a bit. Offensive lineman 9. Trent Williams, Robert Jones, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colton McKivitz, Vidarian Lowe as your swing tackle, Carver Willis, the rookie, Brett Toth behind Jake Brendel, and Enrique Cruz Jr., the other rookie, backing up right tackle. There's no way I was going to go with 10 offensive linemen with some of the needs on the roster, nor was I going to go with 8, which is the minimum that you have to have. 9 is the sweet spot, which means players that are going to get cut or will be on the practice squad. Connor Colby. Now, if something happens with Robert Jones, hurt last year with Dallas, played, I think, a full season or close to it last year with the Dolphins. I think there's going to be some sort of a comfort level on the line, having a veteran in the mix with a younger player. So if it's Jones with Carver Willis, let's say Carver Willis is a complete bust and Connor Colby makes it. Is it possible Carver Willis and Connor Colby, if Colby makes a big second-year jump, are on the team at offensive line? Yes, but I also think it's easier to sneak someone like Connor Colby onto the practice squad versus Robert Jones if he shows that he's fully healed from the neck injury, and I think it would be a good addition in between Williams and Brendel on that side of the line. Enrique Cruz Jr. could very easily not make the team if Austin Pleasance, shows out better as a backup tackle, not the swing tackle, but say a backup right tackle. Then Enrique Cruz Jr. really may not make the team. I know there's a lot of people that like him, and that's fantastic. He's a player that, again, if he gets released as the Niners making him a 5th round pick don't mean anything when we know that this team tends to reach. So Enrique Cruz Jr., Connor Colby, Austin Pleasance, all could slide to the practice squad. I think it's potentially easier to get Pleasance on the practice squad than Cruz Jr. So for now, Enrique Cruz Jr. is the 9th offensive lineman on the team and the backup right tackle. Nick Sakiel was another one that's going to get released, could find his way to the practice squad as the 3rd or center 3, backing up Brendel and Brett Toth. Defensive line 9. Bosa, Alfred Collins, Osa Zigizua, Sam O, CJ West, Grayson Halton, your 2 other defensive tackles, Romello Height, Cam Sample, and Keon White. Height and Sample as your DNs, Keon White as your tweener. I have Michael Williams starting out on the PUP list. And even though, you want to be full strength week 1, I get it. Especially going out there and playing the Rams. But after the Rams, you have Miami and Arizona winnable games and that Denver game coin flip. Those are your first 4 games. Williams is a month behind Nick Bosa. John Lynch said both of them should be ready for training camp. Again, just because you're ready for training camp doesn't mean you're ready for the regular season, right? It's got to see how the knee responds in camp. And who knows, I don't know if Michael Williams is going to get into any preseason games. Having Williams sit or be on the pup for the first 4 weeks, I think helps the team out, assuming there's no major injuries on the D line going into the season, because you got to figure someone's going to get hurt the first week of the season. Then you have a fresh body in Mykel Williams to come in and replace that person, whether it's on the D line or somewhere else. Injuries are going to happen. That's why when Kittle being on the pup list, him sliding into the number 1 tight end role could move, in my opinion, come week 5, someone like Curtis Rourke off the roster. Rourke's not going to see any playing time the first month of the season, God willing, unless something crazy happens. And I think Rourke goes from a release to a practice squad. So week 5, I can see the Niners having 2 quarterbacks on the roster with Brock and Mack, and then back to your 3 tight ends with Kittle, Tonjes, and Farrell. Here's where, a little bit of musical chairs in terms of roster spots are going to happen. Williams, 21, 22 years old, could very well be ready for week 1. I'm not counting on it the way the Niners roll through injuries. So 9 defensive linemen for week 1 on the 53. Linebackers, we're going to go 6. Fred Warner, Dre Greenwell, Luke Gifford are your top 3. Then Nick Martin, Jaden Duggar, and Garrett Wallow. The Niners always seem to go one more linebacker, 6, that I'd like them to carry 5, and I don't think this year is going to be any different. Cornerbacks, I'm going to go 6 again. It's Demo, Green, and Stout as your starters. Jack Jones is one of the outside backups. Nate Hobbs backing up Upton Stout, and 5th-round pick Ephesians Prysock gets the 6th cornerback spot instead of Darrell Luter. If for no other reason, then you have Prysock as corner 6. Will he get some playing time? Sure, but it's also a player that is under contract for 4 years versus Darrell Luter, the last year under contract. New regime under Raheem Morris and the defensive backs coach. May want to go with some younger blood. Prysock, the biggest corner, the largest wingspan on the team, for whatever it's worth. And there's been some discussion he could get looked at safety. I'm not going to project that right now, but in terms of youth, upside, speed, new regime, and contract, it'll be Prysock, in my opinion, over Darrell Luter. This is all injuries aside, guys, obviously. And safeties. They should upgrade the safety position, but they will, as of right now, they are not. So it's going to be Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, Marquise Siegel, and Siran Neal. Siran Neal's on the last year of his deal. He could play corner or safety. Not extremely well, but that's because he's a backup, but he's a strong special teams player. I can't see, unless a young player or someone that's not on the roster now that's brought in later on is so phenomenal as a bottom of the roster special teams player that Siran Neal does not beat that player out. So I see him on the roster. If you want to slot him in as safety 4, fine. And special teams, it's John Weeks, it's Eddie Pinheiro at kicker, and Corliss Waitman will be the punter. So that is the 53. And let me actually go back to one thing. When Mykel Williams is healthy, this again could be week 5. If someone's hurt on the D-line, that player can get put on short-term IR. Mykel Williams slides into that spot. If no one's hurt anywhere, someone like a Garrett Wallow could be released. You still have 5 linebackers on the team. When fully healthy, I want 10 defensive linemen on the team. That was the weak spot of the team last year. Pass rush, obviously. And I've been saying for multiple podcasts, the ideal construction to me is 4 pure DNs, 4 pure D tackles, and 2 tweeners. Keon White, and right now, until he shows otherwise, Mykel Williams is a tweener. In terms of roster turnover, guys, obviously a new running back in Keelan Black could be the backup. Tight ends are the same. 50% of the wide receiver room is new. Evans, Kirk, and Stribling, 3 of 6, new. You're going to have a new starter at left guard, more than likely either Robert Jones or Carver Willis. But of the 9 offensive linemen, I have 4 of the 9, which is over 40%, as new linemen. Sounds good when you say, oh, the Niners revamped their offensive line room. 4 of the 9 are new, but only 1 of the 5 starters is new. So in terms of the actual impact on the field outside of injuries, not a ton. And then in terms of what's coming back on the D line, you're going to get Bosa back. You're going to get Williams. You have Halton is new. Romello Height is new. Cam Sample is new. So if they keep 10 off a defensive lineman, half of their D-line is new. New or coming back from injury. And you could say new as of after the Giant game last year, because that's when Michael got hurt and Bosa was hurt before that. Linebacker, a new starter in Greenlaw, new backup in Jaden Duggar, and a complete wild card in Nick Martin. You have 50% of the secondary new, if it goes the way I said, in Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, and Ephesian Prysock. And safety, the Niners, for whatever reason, don't value dynamic safeties, and they have none on the team. This whole interchangeable safety thing, it's easier to be interchangeable when you just have to react and cover and play more so like a strong safety than a free safety. But we all know this team needs a ball hawk. This team needs a center fielder. This team needs a safety with range. It's not on the roster right now. I will give Raheem Morris and the secondary coach the benefit of the doubt. They've forgotten more about football than I will ever know. But we're looking right now, obviously, at left guard, question mark, with players there. Safety, question mark, potentially no players there at free safety. And we'll see how the D-line rounds into form when they get healthy. So that's my 53-man roster with some noodling with players on PUP and an 11-6 prediction for the 49ers. Feels about right. It feels fair. Not too high, not too low. Goldilocks, just right. So that's going to conclude the podcast for today. Like always, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your viewing or listening routine. Mini camp coming up in maybe about a week or so. Next podcast will probably be after that, the mini camp reaction show, where everybody, the Fat Larry Krugers of the world and the other content creators who just want to blow smoke up your ass are going to tell you how awesome everybody looks in t-shirts and shorts and a helmet. That's not us, guys. We're a little bit more down to earth and logical, but there will be things to react to and discuss unless there's something crazy new that happens in Niner land. Until then, everyone, with the weather turning, especially here in the Northeast, super hot this week. Stay safe, be happy, healthy. We'll stay safe again, guys. Faithful, talk soon. We are getting closer to football season. Take care, all.